The black ships of the Drakonid Empire sliced through space like colossal scythes of death, their dark hulls swallowing every star's light. Behind them, crimson energy trails bled across the infinite night like dried blood staining the void. For 3 centuries, these ships had spread terror to countless worlds. "The weak shall kneel before the strong," was the iron creed of the Drakonid. They were towering, muscular beings with scales harder than steel and claws sharp as ancient blades. They saw themselves as the galaxy's ultimate predators, destined to crush all life. Any world they found, they razed. Any species they encountered, they enslaved. In this vast, cold universe, Earth was still a tiny spark, barely venturing into space. Humanity had joined the Galactic Assembly only 30 years ago. Compared to many other races, we seemed unremarkable. Not exceptionally strong, no fearsome natural weapons. Our technology good, but far from ancient civilization's heights. Drakonid commanders had watched videos of humans, sneeringly calling us soft-skinned hatchlings, not even worth the effort to conquer. But humans, we had learned to survive with cunning. We forged friendships instead of feuds. We traded knowledge and culture with peaceful species, cautiously building small colonies on 12 distant planets, always keeping a safe distance from Drakonid borders. Earth's leaders knew the lurking danger. They could only pray that distance would shield their children. On Earth, life flowed with its usual bustling peace. In London, Admiral Kenji Tanaka, a seasoned veteran now dedicated to peace, walked through the lush Hyde Park with his 8-year-old granddaughter, Aiko. Aiko, with her wide, curious eyes and radiant smile, was the light of his life. She loved chasing pigeons, her laughter ringing like tiny bells. "Grandpa, do you think humans will ever fly to the farthest stars?" asked Aiko, her eyes gazing up at the clear blue sky. "Of course, my dear," Admiral Tanaka smiled, gently stroking her soft black hair. "We humans can do anything if we work together." It was an ordinary day, for a fleeting moment longer. Then, a chilling wail tore through the air. Not a drill, not a warning from a distant colony, but the utterly forgotten primal sound of an invasion alert, a sound not heard on Earth for centuries. Then the sky itself seemed to rip open. Massive black specks, far larger than any known starship, materialized from nowhere, plunging through the atmosphere like deadly arrows. They were not probes. They were Drakonid landing craft, and they were heading straight for the world's largest cities. Earth's global defense systems, designed for internal threats or known species, crumpled in minutes. Drakonid technology was too alien, too brutal, too utterly unexpected. Cities like Tokyo, New York, London, Shanghai, Rio de Janeiro instantly transformed into living hells. This wasn't a distant orbital bombardment. It was a direct, ground-level assault, a cold, brutal massacre unfolding street by street. Commander Zarthus, a Drakonid whose scales were scarred from 100 battles, stood on the bridge of his colossal landing craft, his yellow eyes burning with predatory glee as he looked down at the chaotic Trafalgar Square. "I told you," he snarled to his second-in-command. "Humans are soft. Even their homeworld cannot defend itself." Thousands of Drakonid warriors poured out of the landing craft. They sought no resources, no strategic positions. They sought the utter thrill of dominance, and more importantly, to demonstrate the predator's might by crushing their prey firsthand. They slaughtered, without mercy, without a second thought. They didn't fire from afar. They wanted humans to feel the horror of facing their death directly, to hear the screams, to smell the fear. Admiral Tanaka, a man of peace for decades, now moved with the raw instinct of a cornered animal trying to find Aiko amidst the stampeding, panicked crowd. The screams, the explosions, the guttural roars of Drakonid, and the sparse, desperate gunfire of Earth's security forces merged into a horrifying symphony. He saw Aiko, her tiny figure tragically separated from him in the chaos, and a colossal Drakonid warrior lunged. In that final agonizing moment, Aiko didn't scream or cry. She just looked straight into the monster's yellow eyes, then turned her head back towards her grandfather, her eyes wide with terror, but also a strange, fleeting, heartbreaking courage. She fell, a small white rose pinned to her dress, now stained crimson. The final broadcast, recorded by a horrified Galactic Assembly satellite, not a personal robot, but a neutral observer's cold, impartial lens, showed that image with horrifying clarity. Zarthus's triumphant sneer as he stood over piles of innocent bodies, and Aiko falling, her last gaze fixed on her grandfather, a tiny, defiant spark extinguished. That video, captured and relayed, was not sent to Earth. It was beamed across every screen, every public display, every data network. It became an obsession, a wound that would never heal, a constant, burning reminder.
Across Earth, an eerie, profound silence settled. No more sirens, no more screams, only an unbearable, soul-deep grief that swallowed everything. As the video of the horrific massacre on Earth broadcast, the horror transformed into something entirely new, something terrifying, a cold, burning fury that consumed everything, an absolute, unyielding will for retribution that ran down to the very bones of humanity. Admiral Kenji Tanaka, who had personally witnessed the destruction of his city and the death of his granddaughter, now sat in the United Nations Assembly Hall. His eyes were bloodshot, his face etched with weariness that spoke of sleepless nights and endless pain, yet his gaze was as sharp and cold as tempered steel. He uttered no pleas. He asked the Galactic Assembly for no aid. He simply played the video of Aiko falling, the image of Zarthus standing triumphantly over the ruins, repeating it again and again, burning it into every observer's mind. "They came to our home." Admiral Tanaka's voice was hoarse, raw with grief, yet it resonated with a chilling power through the hall. "They murdered our children. They trampled on our most sacred ground. They showed us their true nature. And now—" He looked directly at the alien representatives, his gaze seemingly piercing their very souls, stripping away their composure. "To the esteemed members of the Assembly, you have seen, you have heard. And now we will show you something else. What has slept deep within the human spirit has now awakened. We will not stop until every Drakonid knows the terror they unleashed, knows the absolute ruthlessness of daring to touch Earth." The alien representatives, accustomed to polite diplomatic disputes, now sat in utter, chilling fear as they met Admiral Tanaka's gaze. They had never witnessed a species transform so swiftly and terrifyingly. They had never seen a pain so profound that it could forge an entire civilization into a single, unified, terrifying will for revenge. This was no longer war. This was purification. After the brutal attack on Earth, what remained of humanity was utterly transformed. No more hesitation, no more hidden capabilities. The secret armories, the underground research labs, the orbital defense platforms, they weren't just opened, they were optimized for total, absolute annihilation. Scientists, tormented by the loss of loved ones, no longer designed weapons for defense or deterrence. Instead, they became architects of suffering, crafting instruments to inflict proportional pain, to turn Drakonid ships to ash, to dismantle the very foundation of what their enemy considered glorious. Earth's war strategists, individuals like Colonel Anya Petrova, a brilliant tactician now consumed by the desire to see her enemies vanish, and Special Forces Commander Marcus Ghost Riley, who had lost his entire family in the London attack, together forged an unthinkable plan of retribution. Warp jump and phase shift technology. Humanity's ships didn't merely travel at faster-than-light speeds, they defied the very fabric of space. Equipped with radical new warp jump and phase shift technology, human vessels could now materialize directly within enemy formations, ripping through defenses and sowing absolute chaos from angles Drakonid sensors simply couldn't track. Some audacious jumps even saw human transports appear inside Drakonid hangars, disgorging elite troops into the heart of the enemy's ship before a single Drakonid could react, initiating brutal close-quarters mass massacres. New and devastating weapons. No longer content with mere energy blasts, human ingenuity, forged in grief, birthed horrors the Drakonid couldn't comprehend. Targeted bioweapons weren't fired as projectiles, but unleashed as airborne plagues that savagely ravaged Drakonid physiology, forcing their legendary steel-hard scales to crack and their mighty muscles to seize in agonizing spasms. Molecular disrupting nanobombs, microscopic yet devastating, turned their impenetrable armor to fine dust on contact, leaving their warriors exposed and terrified. And the new matter-scrambling particle rifles didn't just wound, they disintegrated Drakonid warriors into nothingness in mere seconds, leaving behind only a faint, acrid smell and the chilling echo of their screams in the void. Death strike tactics. Human pilots and soldiers, fueled by grief and absolute loss, fought with a terrifying recklessness that bordered on madness. Retreat was unthinkable, surrender an insult to the fallen. Every human soldier became a living fuse, programmed not by code, but by an unyielding spirit to inflict maximum damage on the enemy, utterly disregarding their own survival. Their final words, often broadcast across Drakonid frequencies just moments before a suicidal ram into a flagship or an explosion in an enemy stronghold, were always the same, a cold, burning promise of vengeance. For Earth. For Aiko. Admiral Kenji Tanaka was no longer merely a man. He was the embodiment of humanity's unending wrath. He commanded his fleet not to conquer or liberate, but to purge. His orders were simple, delivered with a chilling finality devoid of mercy. Every child they killed, every drop of blood they spilled on our homeworld will be answered with 1,000-fold terror. We will burn their empire to ashes. We will extinguish their name from the stars. As the human fleet, now a solid black like the abyss itself, streaked with ominous crimson glows, tore into Drakonid space, other species in the galactic assembly no longer saw a soft race. They saw a new monster awakened, a new dread far more terrifying than the Drakonids themselves. They realized that when you push a species to the brink of despair, especially one that loves its children so fiercely, you don't just create an enemy, you create a nightmare that no one, not even its creators, can control. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Drakonid, accustomed to swift, overwhelming victories against terrified opponents, found themselves facing an enemy utterly devoid of fear, driven only by an insatiable hunger for vengeance. Human tactics were alien to the Drakonid. They wouldn't engage in grand fleet battles if a stealth insertion could disable a planetary defense grid, turning a fortified world into a sitting duck. They wouldn't waste lives in frontal assaults if a precision strike with a targeted virus could cripple a command structure, watching Drakonid commanders descend into madness before their own ranks turned on them. They learned the Draconids' biology, their psychology, their most deeply held beliefs, and then exploited every single weakness with chilling precision. Drakonid warriors, once proud and fearless, began to show signs of terror. Human special forces teams, like Commander Riley's Shadow Vipers, would infiltrate their strongest fortresses, not to capture, but to execute Drakonid commanders in their sleep, leaving behind only the cold, stark symbol of a bleeding earth carved into the walls. Stories spread through Drakonid ranks of phantom attacks, where entire garrisons would simply vanish, leaving no trace but a faint smell of ozone and the unsettling silence, as if swallowed whole by the void.
On the Drakonid homeworld, the supreme hunter, once so arrogant, now looked haggard, his scales dull and flaking. His advisors bickered, their voices filled with panic, their eyes darting nervously. Their vaunted superiority had evaporated. Their empire was crumbling, not from a conventional war, but from a relentless surgical campaign of terror and attrition tearing at their very souls. They are hunting us," one advisor stammered, pointing at a holographic map showing core Drakonid systems turning dark, not just conquered, but lifeless. "They are not conquering, they are eradicating." Commander Zarthus, who had commanded the Earth attack, was now relegated to a forgotten outpost on a desolate moon, a broken warrior haunted by the phantom screams of human children and the image of Aiko's final glance. He watched the news feeds with a growing horror, seeing his once glorious empire systematically disassembled. He had seen the child fall. He had laughed. Now that laughter echoed as a death knell across his dying empire, a constant reminder of the price of his arrogance. The humans were not just fighting, they were making a statement, carving it into the very fabric of Drakonid existence with fire, blood, and utter, unforgiving finality. The Drakonid tried to negotiate, sending desperate messages to the Galactic Assembly, pleading for intervention. But Admiral Tanaka's response, when he bothered to reply, was always the same, broadcast across all Drakonid frequencies, a chilling promise. "You sowed the seeds of terror on our home. Now you will reap the harvest. And the harvest is not over until the last stalk is cut." There was no peace treaty, no negotiation. There was only the steady, inexorable advance of the human fleet. Planets that once had been proud Drakonid strongholds fell one by one, not converted, but often sterilized, left as uninhabitable monuments to their arrogance. Humanity had learned the Drakonid lesson well. The strong prevail. And now, humanity was the strong. The galaxy watched in terrifying awe as the self-proclaimed apex predators of old were hunted to near extinction. Years passed. The Drakonid Empire, once the terror of the galaxy, was no more. Its proud fleets were shattered, scattered like dust across the void. Its homeworld, though spared complete annihilation, lay under a heavy human occupation, its people stripped of power, forced to face the horrors they had inflicted upon others. Their culture of conquest was systematically dismantled, replaced by a harsh, non-negotiable re-education program overseen by human specialists, a grim reminder of their past crimes.
The Galactic Assembly watched, horrified yet fascinated. Humanity had fulfilled its promise. It had delivered retribution on a scale previously unimaginable, a testament to what a peaceful species could become when pushed beyond all limits. The species that had once been seen as soft was now the most feared and, paradoxically, the most respected force in the galaxy. No one dared provoke them. No one questioned their resolve. Back on Earth, the scars of the invasion were deep. Cities were rebuilt, grander and more resilient than before, but monuments to the fallen stood in every public square. The image of the falling child, Aiko, became a symbol not just of loss, but of humanity's indomitable, terrifying will when pushed too far. Admiral Kenji Tanaka, his hair now completely white, often visited the memorial in Hyde Park. It featured a statue of a small child reaching for the sky, surrounded by names of the countless dead. He was a hero, a symbol of humanity's strength, but in his eyes the weariness of a man who had led his people through hell and back remained. He carried the weight of every life lost, every act of vengeance. He knew humanity was changed forever. We had looked into the abyss of absolute revenge, and we had not flinched. The galaxy would never again mistake humanity's desire for peace as weakness. We had shown them our true, terrifying potential, and the Drakonid, reduced to a humbled, broken people, would be the eternal, living testament to that power. And somewhere, in the silent, broken corners of the former Drakonid Empire, the surviving Drakonid finally understood. They had awakened something ancient, something that had slumbered beneath the surface of a peaceful species. They had taught humanity how to be the ultimate predator, and now the lesson was complete, carved into their very souls.